Hello, and you are listening to Eco Justice Radio. We present environmental, cultural, and climate stories from a social justice frame. We amplify community voices, broaden the reach of grassroots movements, and inspire action. My name is Jack Ite, and let's travel into the wild grasslands, climb the high altiplano. With a view into other worlds, we endeavor to chart a path through those meteors coming at us, beyond nests of raptors and towering cedars, and into the realm of eco-justice. On today's show, Nature's Remedy, Healing Our Earth with Ecological Remediation. Host Carrie Kim will be interviewing Danielle Stevenson, a pioneering mycologist, environmental scientist, and educator specializing in mycorremediation and sustainable practices. Danielle Stevenson founded and runs the Center for Applied Ecological Remediation, or CAER. She's an environmental toxicologist with expertise in soil, water, and waste remediation. She has led community, academic, governmental partnerships to develop accessible soil testing programs and implement nature-based cleanup strategies, including plant fungal remediation models. As background to this show, we feature this clip from the 2024 Bioneers Conference. Merlin Sheldrake, the biologist and best-selling author of Entangled Life, How Fungi Make Our World.
I'm going to talk about fungi, because I can assume that you all know about fungi. You know that this is a kingdom of life. You know that these are ecosystem engineers that underwrite the regenerative capacity of the living world. You know that there are lots of ways to be a fungus. I'm going to talk about a specific group of fungi called mycorrhizal fungi. And I know you've also heard something of mycorrhizal fungi, which is great. So I can just give a small recap. Mycorrhizal fungi are fungi that forms very intimate and ancient relationships with plants. And I'm going to ask here, I'm going to hold the focus steady on the question of how can we nourish generative relationships with mycorrhizal fungi to support the flourishing of life on Earth and to help address the coupled crises of climate change and biodiversity loss. So almost all plants depend on mycorrhizal fungi, and these are fungi that form mycelial networks, which are branching, fusing networks of tubular cells. And these fungi are brilliant. They're chemical wizards. They're brilliant navigators in the wild, wet world of the soil. They're able to grow and remodel their bodies and forage using their chemical ingenuity for nutrients that plants need, like nitrogen and phosphorus. They acquire these nutrients and they supply these nutrients to their plant partners. And the plant partners, in exchange for these nutrients, they provide the fungi with things that the fungi need to grow. Energy-containing carbon compounds like sugars and fats that the plants have made in photosynthesis. So this is a very intimate relationship. And this is really an intermingling of bodies. It's one of the living world's great intimacies. I suppose I would say that, but I really do believe it. And it is an astonishing way that organisms can come together to extend their reach and to make things possible that wouldn't otherwise be possible. This is really actually the roots of life on land. Plants would only make it out of water and onto the land with the help of their fungal associates, who behaved as their root systems for tens of millions of years until plants could evolve their own roots.
Aloha, this is Carrie Kim. Listeners, today we are excited to welcome back Danielle Stevenson, founder and executive director of the Center for Applied Ecological Remediation, or CAER, to continue our conversations on ecological remediation, phyto and mycoremediation, remediating toxic sites, as well as post-fire and ecosystem restoration. She innovates in nature-based techniques to restore contaminated land, allowing fungi and native plants to break down toxins such as petroleum, plastics, and pesticides into less toxic chemicals. CAER's mission is to advance research and application of ecological remediation to equitably address pollution, promote public health, provide education and workforce development, build climate resilience, and ensure environmental justice. Regeneration is possible in even the most dire situations if we follow the ways of nature. Danielle Stevenson joins us to explain how we can be part of this collective remembrance.
Mm.
Danielle,
Hi.
welcome back. Third time's a charm.
Thank you.
So, your visit is a timely one, given the backdrop of regulatory capture, the potential doubling down on glyphosate, biocides, pesticides. This all looms large for this continent and beyond. As many of us know, living, breathing, and eating a wide range of toxic pollutants on a daily basis. There is exposure to PFAS and metals of concern, including arsenic, lead, chromium. You could give us a much longer list, I'm sure. But we understand these happenings are radical opportunities to change our ways and return to upholding nature as a sacred living inheritance to respect and protect. So we thank you, Danielle, for being here. We do want to also honor the Tongva ancestors as our show comes to you from the ancestral homelands of the Tongva. And we invite all listeners to align with the indigenous peoples, the original peoples of the area where you now live, to align with them and to act on their behalf for their continuance. Danielle, first of all, I want to celebrate the opening and already the expansion of CARE, your new lab in Yagna, aka downtown LA.
It's so exciting. It's a dream come true.
Yeah, I mean, what does it mean to you having this lab available now?
It means that we can grow, grow fungi to support, local projects, helping clean up after the recent catastrophic wildfires in LA, and to support cleanup of industrially contaminated sites around LA. It also means we have space to provide free and low cost soil contaminant testing for throughout the city of LA. So it's really exciting to have a space to come together and grow and do this work.
Yeah, we truly, truly thank you for your commitment to this because we know it's so essential, and especially living here with the amount of pollution that we're assaulted with here every day.
Mm.
Do you feel that the opening of your lab signifies some kind of forward movement in the direction of nature-based remediation with fungi, native plants? Do you feel that there's a greater embrace, curiosity, alignment with these approaches?
Hmm. I do. I really do. I think the fires in LA really brought top of mind, pollution to people who maybe hadn't
Ever
been as
considered?
aware before. Yeah. And those people include funders, right? So, funders who suddenly were like, wait, what do we do about widespread pollution? There's got to be a better way. It was interesting because I noticed one of the major points that stood out for funders was that we were dumping toxic materials in other communities. And they were like, wait, that's not a solution. And I was like,
Mm.
yeah, exactly. It really isn't. And so, yeah, it does feel like a big moment and a really good sign. Well, I guess it depends how you see it, right? It's a good sign that
Right.
there's support for these more nature-based methods of cleaning up pollution.
Well, I think
It's
it's
a,
kind of also when it's in their own backyards, right? When it's right there and
yeah,
oh, I'm exposed to this pollution. And then you
yeah,
realize, oh, all these other people. And then you kind of, how can you be so exceptional, you know,
yes.
as long as
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
protected, and especially when there's all these people and what's happened here. It does feel that the fires, post fires here, really woke a lot of people up to also just there's corruption, but then there's also what we're doing to the environment on every level.
Mm.
Are you finding that the lab also kind of a way to outreach and educate more people about this potential need? Are you doing, lab tours, or how are the ways that
Mhm.
you're doing outreach with community?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of outreach actually. It's like unprecedented levels of outreach. We do a lot of in-person events, like info sessions at like churches and
Mm.
schools and
Uh-huh.
all kinds of different community settings, long-term recovery centers and spaces like that, community farms. And then we're also doing a lot of virtual and online
Webinars.
outreach,
Uh-huh.
just yeah, just to reach more people where they're at and whether they can leave home or not. Yeah, so it's just been, I think I've done like I think I was saying that, yeah, I was like, I think I've done over
Amazing.
30 talks or workshops in the last few weeks, which
That's
which is which is a
yeah.
lot. So yeah, we're doing a lot of, yeah, trying to meet people where they're at and share information about, how to do soil testing, what does it mean, how to interpret it, and then things folks can do, at an individual or community scale to address pollution where they live.
I wonder, could you backtrack for any new listeners? We've had two other prior shows with Danielle in interviews, but could you share from the beginning, like what is ecological remediation or nature-based remediation for anyone not familiar with those terms?
Yeah, yeah, good call. So, well, remediation means just cleaning up, addressing pollution in the environment. And usually that's done through just moving the pollution somewhere else, whether
Very
that's
simple.
soil or waste or whatever. And so nature-based or bioremediation involves working with living organisms like plants and fungi and microbes to clean up pollution in place. And there's a lot of advantages of that. With ecological remediation, we're basically bridging pollution cleanup and ecological restoration or regeneration. So we take things a little bit further, instead of just putting in, like one one type of living organism, like putting in, compost or just plants or just fungi. We look at the system as a whole and try to sort of support regeneration and correct any imbalances. So that often looks like making sure really important species are present, like mycorrhizal fungi, which we can
Mhm.
talk more about, the plant supporting fungi that live
Mhm.
underground.
Mhm.
It might look like looking at what the whole system needs to heal and recover. So maybe, maybe water is needed or other types of supports. And then, yeah, looking too at like cycles of regeneration. So recognizing that often after a big disturbance like a fire or pollution or whatever it may be, there are certain kinds of organisms that really thrive in those really disturbed environments.
Mhm.
And they can kind of kick off making, supporting them and getting them in place can really help kick off these cycles of regeneration that can take hold. And also like diversity is resilience, right? So not just, again, like not just sometimes bioremediation, it involves, like I said, just putting in one. Like
Mhm.
you're like, okay, I'm planting sunflowers. But ecological remediation would be looking at like, okay, well, let's put in a bunch of different types of plants, let's put in a bunch of different fungi, and also being mindful of not introducing invasive species and things like
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
respecting local ecologies and bioregional approaches.
Mhm.
So, yeah, altogether, there's a lot of kind of terms that could be thrown around. But yeah, ecological remediation is like this bridge between, yeah, just
Mhm.
cleaning up pollution with living organisms, but also looking at ecological regeneration instead of just the pollution cleanup part.
Mhm. Much bigger picture, which we know we need. We know that that's the longevity piece, right?
Mm,
Just like all the tree planting projects. You can't just plant the tree and then walk away and think it's going to be there still, growing.
right. And it honestly, it kind of blows my mind. I've like, I've been going to a lot of conferences lately about fire, and yeah, it's so strange to me that there's still like planting efforts that have like 90%
Failure rate.
mortality, like everything
Oh.
dies, and
Mhm.
then they just keep
Doing it
doing
again.
it. It's
Yeah.
like, well, maybe
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Much better for the longevity, yeah, to have the continuum. I wonder if you could, speaking of, again about ecological remediation, if you might be able to share some of those basic principles. I think they're also listed on your site. You have
Hmm.
several, and that they're very, I think very helpful for people to understand.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the principles of ecological remediation is, ecological succession. So, like I mentioned, there's certain species and types of species that tend to do well after just big disturbances. And those are often combinations of species we can work with to clean up pollution, whether it's after fires or after a big industrial impact.
Hmm.
So that's one of the major principles. Also, just that diversity as resilience piece. So we're never just incorporating a single kingdom of life or a single species in nature. All kinds of organisms, every life creates food and habitat for another life,
Hmm.
which kind of ties into, and uh, all of that leads to greater resilience, right? With the example we just talked about, like if you're like, okay, we're doing a tree planting effort, we're going to do a monoculture for some reason, and we're going to just only plant pine trees or something. That's not a very resilient system. It's very easy for that to get taken out. And
Hmm.
especially in stressed and disturbed systems, it's really important to have a whole, you know, diversity of species and kingdoms of life present so they can support each other, first of all,
Hmm.
because most beings live in relationship and interrelationship, but also so that if, a couple of those organisms don't do as well in that specific really tough environment, then there's others that can kind of like get things going and get that cycle started.
Hmm.
Another principle is waste as a resource. So similarly, like yeah, in nature, there isn't waste. Everything is, food or habitat for another life. So we try to work with waste as much as we can, and instead of sending stuff away, maybe we can utilize it in our projects.
Hmm.
And then similarly, we try to, with these pollution cleanup methods, not externalize the problem into other communities, whether human or non-human, and actually, you know, take good care and even just utilize any byproducts of the remediation process. So, plants that pull up metals, which do not break down, could become, perhaps biofuel or useful objects, or, there's we're looking at biochar creation from some of these materials once the metals are extracted. Um, yeah, and then also, considering succession, considering that systems change over time. Change is a part of systems, and usually after a big disturbance like pollution or fire, we want to, yes, we're starting over, and we don't want to work with invasive species in that process. So, using bioregional approaches. Um, yeah, I think I covered some of the main principles of ecological remediation there.
Could you give, I mean, who are some of the first responders that come after a big disturbance?
Yeah, it's a lot of
It's all
plants that
contextual, but
even if they're native, even if they're native plants, we consider them to be weeds.
no.
And what that means is they're fast growing.
Mhm.
They come in after disturbance. Often they have root systems and like physiologies that can thrive. So like one of the plants we work with a lot that's native to California and that pulls up lead and other metals is telegraph weed. It's
Oh,
literally called
right.
telegraph weed, even though it's a native
Mhm.
plant,
Mhm.
because it grows this amazing taproot that allows it to dig down through really compacted soils. We also tend to see, so for the for the fungi nerds out there,
Mhm.
you might know some of the different categories of fungi, right? We have fungi from the Basidiomycota or the Ascomycota, but if you've ever heard of like fungi growing inside of
Uh-huh.
Chernobyl and growing on contaminated sites and growing after fires, they tend to be from the Ascomycota. And those are like early successional. They're really good, similar to those early successional plants. They drop in really stressful conditions and they can make stuff work,
Mhm.
no matter the stress or the pollution. And as they do that and just live their lives, they, again, like I said, create food and habitat for other organisms. They work themselves, all of these species work themselves out of a job. So I have seen again and again, after working on this stuff for many years, I've seen sites that were dominated by invasive species, while polluted, after cleaning up the pollution and getting that system kind of reorganized, regenerated, become these, native habitats. So really often those early successional species kind of work themselves out of a job and create space for more life to come in later.
The listeners, we're going to have a break right now. We're going to come right back to talk with Danielle about CAER's funding from FireAid to support full service soil remediation, grant funded full service soil remediation. So stick around.
Hey listeners, quick break here. We hope that you're enjoying Eco Justice Radio. Stay connected by subscribing on all major podcast apps and visit our website, ecojusticeradio.org, to check out previous shows and guests, listen to extended episodes, and get connected with us on social media. Today you're listening to Nature's Remedy, Healing Our Earth with Ecological Remediation. Host Carrie Kim and guest Danielle Stevenson, pioneering mycologist, environmental scientist, and educator. More from Merlin Sheldrake from the 2024 Bioneers Conference in Berkeley, where he stresses how critically important fungi are and discusses the visionary work of the Society for the Protection of Underground Networks, SPUN, and its efforts to map and protect the mycorrhizal fungal communities of the planet.
A recent study that Toby and I were part of found that mycorrhizal fungi funnel around 13 billion tons of CO2 into the soil every year. That's as much as a third of the total CO2 emissions produced by the burning of fossil fuels every year. It's a significant amount of carbon. They stabilize this carbon in the soil and power soil food webs, which contain over half of all species on the planet. So globally, the total length of mycorrhizal fungal mycelium in the top 10 centimeters of soil is more than 450 quadrillion kilometers, which is over half of the width of the galaxy. These organisms are stationed at a vital point in global carbon and nutrient cycles, and they make up one of the circulatory systems of the planet, an ancient life support system that easily qualifies as one of the wonders of the living world. But despite their roles in supporting planetary biodiversity and regulating the Earth's nutrient cycles and climate, mycorrhizal fungi are a global blind spot, largely absent from climate change agendas, conservation strategies, restoration strategies, agriculture, and forestry. And this is a problem. It's a problem, first, because mycorrhizal fungi lie at the base of the food webs that sustain much of life on Earth and make a key lever in planetary ecology. And yet, hardly anyone is touching this lever. It would be like trying to perform life-saving surgery without taking into account the circulatory systems of our bodies. It's a problem for another reason. What we are blind to, we tend to destroy. The destruction of underground ecosystems accelerates climate change, biodiversity loss, and what's more, when we disrupt these communities, we destroy an ancient library of solutions that fungi have evolved to rise to the challenge of living. We have no idea how many of these solutions might prove vital to life on Earth moving forward. When mycorrhizal fungi suffer, so do the organisms and the ecosystems that depend on them. So, back to this question. How can we nourish generative relationships with these ancient life support systems to support the flourishing of life on Earth and respond to climate and biodiversity crises? I'm going to describe two projects that I work on with Toby, and Toby has summarized these briefly. And the first is, as Toby says, this grand, very big, zoomed-out perspective. It's the Society for the Protection of Underground Networks, or SPUN, and SPUN is trying to answer this question by taking a global perspective, using huge data sets to map the mycorrhizal communities of the planet and advocate for their protection. The second approach zooms all the way in We use advanced microscopy, robotics, machine learning tools to look inside mycorrhizal fungi to try and decode the flows and behavioral dialects of these living sensing networks. So, one of the ways we can form relationships with these ancient life support systems is by stopping destroying them. And SPUN's work is trying to facilitate this. There are lots of threats to underground ecosystems, despite the fact that we think about them less than we should. Deforestation, desertification, over-application of industrial agricultural chemicals like fungicides and fertilizers, over-ploughing, any number of things, the list goes on. The result of all of this combination is that, based on current trends, 90% of the Earth's soils will be degraded by 2050.
Listeners, we are back with Danielle Stevenson from the Center for Applied Ecological Remediation. What is the concern around when you have a remediation project and then it's pulling up whether it's heavy metals or some other toxic pollutant for animals or birds or anyone to pick up on that? How do you address that?
Great question. Yeah, you have to, that has to be part of your design is how to be responsible, right? Responsible caretakers for the project and for the site and for the pollution. So that looks like monitoring to collect any edible portions of, sorry, products from the site, like mushrooms or, seeds or things like that. So they're not getting eaten and spread in the environment. And it looks like installing, protective barriers in some cases to prevent that as well.
Do you have to like cage them or things, kinds of things so that animals and things cannot eat, say, a fruiting body or, is that what happens?
Usually we just are careful to monitor and collect uh, any fruiting bodies and prevent that from happening. But yeah, but sometimes unsensitive ecological areas, we will have fencing and other things like that to
Mhm.
prevent any distribution of those contaminants.
It's amazing. And we were just about to talk about your program with Fire Aid and Greater Good to provide residential bioremediation.
Yeah, super exciting. We were honored to receive this support to provide support. So the first round of funding we received from Fire Aid was actually to do bioremediation or ecological remediation on public sites impacted by fire contamination. So that resulted in we're working on Eaton Canyon
Oh,
Park,
mhm.
which is a really special place that does have widespread contamination from the Eaton fire. And it's a unique opportunity to test some of these methods, right, in a really ecologically sensitive natural area and at such a big scale. It's a huge park. We're still assessing the extent of the of
Mhm.
the contamination, but
Yeah.
it's ex
Mhm.
yeah, it's many acres. And on top of that, right, it's a sensitive area. There's a lot of extra considerations. So instead of, even utilizing local native sources of seeds and, fungi, we
Mhm.
are actually we're trying to collect as much as we can from the site and amplify it and grow it out on site to be able to reintroduce for the bioremediation. We're also working on a number of greenways
Oh,
along Will Rogers State Beach and
oh,
that
that's
whole
amazing.
strip in the Palisades where a lot of fire debris was stored temporarily
Mm.
on its way out of town. So we've completed testing and in fact is contaminated as well. And we actually have started implementation there also on that whole strip for, testing our bioremediation methods there. We offered bioremediation services to a number of schools in the area. And while we haven't had uptake for that that offering, we have had a lot of interest in education for, for youth who have been impacted by these fires and just the devastation in their community and having their schools shut down and, all these impacts. So we've had we've had youth from multiple different schools come out and help us make myco wattles.
Mm.
This really cool technique. You might remember Maya,
Yes.
Elson, and others at Co-Renewal came up with and shared with us. And we've had, yeah, students helping us make those for use in our projects. So that's, yeah, so we started with a focus on public sites, parks and schools and greenways for post-fire bioremediation. And now we launched our residential program. And I can say that we had almost 500 applicants
Mm-hmm.
for that program across both impacted regions. And yeah, it's just really tough. Like none of them have any type of insurance coverage for soil remediation. Many of them, the majority of folks who applied were, low income, and many of them were like have young children who are at much higher risk of being exposed. Most of the people that ended up in our program are already living back on their site
Mm-hmm.
and have contamination. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're really honored to be able to offer this. We
Mm-hmm.
ended up having funding to provide no cost bioremediation for 50 residential sites
Mm-hmm.
across Altadena and the Palisades that were impacted by fires. And so yeah, we just finalized selection, and now we're doing the intake and about to get this program started.
Mhm. Well, I'm wondering, since the application, I know that you've already selected the applicants, but what about, are there any other resources or places to direct people who are really still wanting this? I mean, where should they turn to at this?
Yeah, well, I mean, we still provide like really low cost, like literally at cost bioremediation services. And we are a nonprofit. And so yeah, our price range for complete bioremediation tends to be between like 7,000 and maybe $15,000 depending on like how big the site is and other things.
Mm.
But yeah, so we can still help with low cost bioremediation services. Yeah, either way, happy to provide guidance for folks. Yeah,
Do you
it
think
is a
that will expand, that will continue to expand, being able to, maybe there's more funding that becomes available because there is so much need? I mean,
yes.
700 applicants is a lot.
Yeah, so we are now going to take that number to other funders and say like, hey, can you help? Look, there's 500 people that are in high need and really need some support and they want bioremediation. So yes, we are trying to get more funding for this for sure.
It feels like there's more support, like you could actually, that there are people that actually would fund this because they're also living here, especially people who are,
Yes.
you're being exposed just like anybody else. We all have to consider this. And
Yeah. It's actually been neat to hear. It's one of the first times I've heard people be aware that like even if they clean up their own site, if they live in a neighborhood where their neighbors haven't had the resources to clean up or whatever, that could impact them too. So I think there is a broader awareness of like when it comes to pollution, we're really
it
all,
doesn't have
yeah, it's
boundaries,
yeah, yeah, there's no boundaries.
right?
It's better. It's a real reason to, if there wasn't one already, to support your neighbors.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
That has to happen. And you help each other, just like you said, when one
Yeah.
person remediates and the other ones are, when everything happens faster, right? It accelerates the rest.
Yep.
So increases.
Yeah, and even for our team, like we're rapidly training. Like we have something like I think 100 interns, and right now we have 15 staff, and we're trying to hire more,
Oh my
so we
God,
can help
yeah.
more people. And yeah, we're always doing trainings, and we're trying
Mhm.
to build this workforce. But yeah, we're really
Yeah.
trying to see like how. I mean, it seems very scalable and we need that. Like we really need that, right? In California, we need it across the US, we need it across the entire world. So it's yeah, it's a really exciting moment right now. I mean, yeah, CARE has only been around as an organization for like a year, I guess almost a year and a half now.
Well, the timing was impeccable for
I know.
that to
Well,
happen as far as
yeah.
the exams.
Well, I was doing other stuff. I was working in Austin for a bit on fungal plastic degradation.
Mhm.
And then I kept getting like my phone was truly
Oh,
blowing up, and
mhm.
people were like, "Wait, could we apply the stuff you studied and tested in your PhD for post-fire?" And I was like, "I think so. I think that makes sense." So, yeah, I ended up moving back and yeah, here to try to help. But it's been a lot of growth in a short time.
In a very short time, yeah.
Hmm
What update would you like to give on the overall situation of post-fire restoration in Altadena and Palisades? I mean, what encouraged you? What encourages you about what you're seeing, if anything, that's encouraging? I mean, I'm sure there's
hmm
plenty that is not, but what inspires you about what is taking place?
What inspires me is yeah, just an entire community, like just huge numbers of people banding together
Mhm,
and really being in it together and throwing down together.
mhm,
That's really inspired me. I've seen some amazing work with our collaborators at Eden Fire Residents United and Resilient Palisades as well, right? Just they've been, support like putting pressure on for bills to pass to make, testing and remediation more accessible for post-fire, fire survivors. Anyways, and that's just one example. There's been a lot of banding together in both like impacted communities and also in like research communities. There was a real coming together of universities and researchers
mhm.
to, collect data and share back so that, we know there's going to be more fires here
Mhm,
and all over.
mhm.
I'm up at a conference right now, and someone shared a map of fire prediction, high intensity fire prediction, and it was like all red,
Mhm,
So
mhm.
we know this is something we're needing to navigate.
Yeah.
And so it's been really neat to see people come together at different levels to try to learn together and influence change together and help each other out.
Well, and hopefully it'll be long lasting. Hopefully it's not just for this period of time, but that it actually is something that continues as far as communities being more bonded together and supporting one another. Okay, listeners, we are going to have another break and we'll come right back to speak with Danielle Stevenson, founder of the Center for Applied Ecological Remediation.
Hey listeners, quick break here. We hope that you're enjoying Eco Justice Radio. Stay connected by subscribing on all major podcast apps and visit our website, ecojusticeradio.org, to check out previous shows and guests, listen to extended episodes, and get connected with us on social media. Today you're listening to Nature's Remedy Healing Our Earth with Ecological Remediation. Host Carrie Kim and guest Danielle Stevenson, pioneering mycologist, environmental scientist, and educator.
So I wonder what you could say about any of the caveats for someone engaging remediation without proper knowledge of
Mhm.
toxicology or improper or incomplete testing of their soil, like just the things that someone might just jump out and think that they can do it themselves, but that's very naive. Yeah. I wonder if you could.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, first of all, I could not have more appreciation for and like resonance with wanting to do something, right? And wanting to help. And so I really want to honor that part or that piece. And then at the same time, I think anytime we're doing land-based work, right, or community-based work, and especially when it's both, there's a real sense of responsibility, right? We want to be really tending. We want to be really listening. We want to be sure that we're actually helping and offering something that's needed rather than kind of just throwing stuff in without those processes of listening and checking in and being responsive. And so, yeah, I mean, with post-fire contamination, with any kind of contamination, it's serious toxicity, right? And so we really want to be sure that we are one learning from, learning and listening to to folks that have more experience or knowledge on these things. Same way, like one of my lab lab mates at CAER was had this analogy. He was like, okay, you wouldn't ask an electrician to be like, hey, just tell me how I can like,
Oh,
fix my electricity. It's dangerous. You could
right.
like electrocute
With
yourself. There's
yourself.
all this stuff that could go wrong. You're not like, just tell me what to do. But I get asked all the time, like,
Oh,
tell
right.
me what plants to put in, which fungi. And I'm like,
Not that
I
simple.
actually wrote there's like hundreds of questions that I think need to be asked before getting started. And that's part of the responsible kind of tending and relating
Mhm.
to land and community, right? It's a very complex system, and especially when it's a system that's been through so much, right? It's extra important to treat that system with like that with sensitivity and respect. So I think if there's a lot of things people can do who want to help out. For
Mhm.
example, like work with us. We need so much help. We're doing,
Right.
doing this on a big scale. We need a lot of help. It's a great way to learn from experience, right? Over time. Um,
Learning from you.
yeah, and if people do want to take some action in their yard or something like that. Things I will say, please make sure you're protecting yourself. Wear protective equipment, at least a particulate N95 mask, gloves, shoe covers, but also please come up with a plan that involves testing. And that is a major barrier. It is expensive to get testing done, but it's
Mhm.
really the only way you can know if what you're dealing with, first of all, and how to design a plan that will help address that, and then also to know if it's working. So
Mhm.
and then the other thing to keep in mind is the testing doesn't just happen initially, it has to happen throughout, and not just for the soil, but also for the plants and the fungi. You can't assume it's working. You need to
Mhm.
actually test and find out. And again, bioremediation is working with living organisms.
Mhm.
If you plant stuff and it doesn't grow,
Right.
then that means that the bioremediation did
Not
not happen.
working.
It's not working.
Yes.
So, and also it takes time. Like it takes like usually like years,
Mhm.
depending on the contaminants and the scale of the pollution. And that's just how things are, right? It's the way of things.
And that's why it's safer though too, right? Versus doing something
Exact.
else, chemical or
Yeah.
otherwise. Just like
Yeah.
I liken it to like holistic healing versus kind of the drugs of Western medicine. They may work best,
Yeah.
but they also create a lot of harms and consequences.
Yeah. And on that note, yeah, the last thing I wanted to say, if people are thinking about doing this themselves, is consider the byproducts, right? So if you are successful and everything goes well and you have metals or PFAS, so there's some contaminants that don't break down, like metals, and there's other contaminants that theoretically can break down, but they're really unlikely to because they're freaking tough, and
Uh-huh.
that's like PFAS, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have contaminants like that and everything went well, then they're probably in the plants that you that you
Uh-huh.
worked with. And
Right.
so
To do
now
with the
you
plant.
have a waste issue. You cannot let those plants fall to the ground and have their natural cycle because that would just re-release those contaminants. You can't let them get eaten by, and say,
Animals
like we
and
talked about earlier, any mushrooms, any plants, you have to really tend and make sure they're not getting mobilized
fed.
off site. There's
Mm-hmm.
other things people commonly add to soil for bioremediation that could make them move off site, like more likely to go into the water or things like that. So it's a really complex system. There's lots to think about, lots to plan, and it's a real commitment. It's not
Uh-huh.
like you throw in a seed bomb and then you walk away. It's
Yeah.
like
It's not like
much more,
planting
it's
sunflowers.
making a, yeah, it's a real commitment. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of complexity. You have to be very adaptive.
Mhm.
You have to really tend. It's like taking on making a garden, except it's even
Times
more complex and
100.
harder. Yeah, than that. So I don't mean that to be discouraging at all. I just mean it so that hopefully we can shift from that seed of action and wanting to do something into like a real, like, what does that really mean? It means like being patient. It means showing up to really complex situations time and time again and still leaning in
Right.
to provide care and taking responsibility when things don't work, and being also aware of the fact that like even though maybe the intention was to help, it's still possible to actually cause harm. And
Mhm.
so that's why it's so important to really, yeah, listen to like
Yeah.
listen to elders, listen to the land, be paying attention and be
Yeah.
patient.
Yeah, and reach out to people who have more skillfulness in this or who are,
Yeah.
are actually have studied this in depth. So it's a critical. What do you feel coulda, woulda, shoulda have happened around post-fire restoration in Altadena and the Palisades? It's probably a long answer, but what do you
Mm.
feel at this point, with what you know now, would best improve preparedness, responsiveness, restoration to deal with future fires? Because as we know, it is natural for fire to come again in this region. This is a fire
Mm.
area. Fire lives here, and we should allow, feel like we need to allow Indigenous peoples to lead here so we can
Mm.
humbly relate with fire, that fire becomes our clear guide, not a wrathful enemy.
Yeah, I think it would be fantastic for LA area and other fire prone areas to get prepared now. And some of the things that would be
Yes.
or like yesterday or a while ago, but some of the things that would be really helpful. I love what you said about, following tribal leadership. There's a lot of amazing tribes in Southern California doing everything from prescribed burns, so cultural burns, to just kind of keep the land in a an attended
Yeah.
place,
Mhm.
so it's less likely for some of these catastrophic fires to happen. There's some really neat also prescribed burn associations popping up and supporting some of that work. I know of also tribes doing a lot of, in addition to burns, doing like controlled burns, doing a lot of landscape management and tending to try to, remove some of the the brush that catches on fire. So that's a really important thing. And then also the community building and skill building around like how do we support the amazing work that's already happening, that just if there was support, there could be more of it. But also skills, yeah, around like how to, yeah, land regeneration in all phases. That's huge. Also, like I know that this issue that happened in LA, and we were lucky to have folks like Maya Elson and Mia Maltz and others who had experience with some of these really
Oh
cool
my God.
myco wattles and things like that. But we don't have access to wattle makers in LA area.
Could you explain what that is, the mycorrhizals, because people may not know what that is.
Yeah. Yeah, so wattles are commonly used for all kinds of erosion control and like runoff filtration. You'll see them on the sides of freeways and stuff. They're like these big, like straw stuffed
Like tubes.
tubes, yeah, that get staked in. They're also used a lot after fires, especially on slopes to prevent ash, toxic ash from running off into the water.
Mm-hmm.
And so the right time to have those set up is like before there's going to be a big rain event that
Mm-hmm.
moves all the toxic ash into the waterways. And in LA, I mean, I'm sure there are groups that have them, maybe at the more municipal or county level, but our communities didn't have them. We were like hand stuffing wattles. It takes a long time. With the myco piece, yeah, sorry. So typical wattle is just filled with straw, and I think it ends up in the landfill eventually. Or myco wattles involve adding in a decomposer fungus that will actually help metabolize some of the contaminants in the ash. So yeah, it's really cool. We're still hand stuffing wattles down here, and it's a lot of work. It's a fun community building activity, but making sure we have the infrastructure locally, like a wattle machine, that would be awesome. Also, part of like setting up our lab was to fill in a gap in some of the missing infrastructure so we could be more ready in the future. One of those things is like there really weren't like local fungal cultures available, like native strains of fungi for Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we've been stepping up to try to provide and be ready.
Is that
Yeah,
like
so
having kind of the equivalent of a fungi nursery?
yes. Yeah, it is.
Love
It's a
that.
fungi
I
nursery.
love that.
Yeah, so those are some major things people could do and tap into and support to help get ready for
Mhm.
future fires.
Do you think that's something that we actually do need to? I mean, literally, like many fungi nurseries, more native plant nurseries, so that we
Yeah.
can be, like you say, with the telegraph weed, whatever is needed of the
Yeah.
birds. Or, I mean, obviously, those will probably be pioneer species, but also you need certain projects you need actually this fall.
Yeah,
Right? So,
totally.
because
And
the needs are there.
more
More
testing supports. I mean, yeah, policy changes too to
the
provide more
funding.
resources and
Mhm.
protections for folks. Yeah, there's so many different aspects that are needed.
But hopefully, a lot of them are moving in the direction of being, supportive. I wonder if you could also, you spoke a bit about the tribal peoples and what they're doing, and I'm wondering if you could speak about if you have any current projects aligning with Indigenous peoples at this point, right now. I know you have in the past.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to think of how much I can share about this, but
Oh,
there is one project. It's a really big site outside of LA that is very, very highly polluted with all the worst kinds of stuff. And it's also a sacred site for all tribes, all seven tribes in the area.
hmm.
It's an important ceremonial site. And so, yeah, with the invitation of the tribes, we've been
Effective.
trying to, yeah, implement bioremediation, an ecological remediation project on that site to demonstrate that, these approaches can be done without having to blow up the
Oh,
site and
mm,
then haul away all that soil to a different different tribal lands in Utah. So the current plan for that site, it will take 30 years to
wow.
haul away all of
Wow.
that soil to Utah, and it will cost $1 billion.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
it's been this multi-year project trying to be able to get this project started, and it keeps getting set
Postponed.
aside and then brought back around. So yeah, that's one project that this really captivated my attention. I'm just
Mm,
like, I hope we can actually do it. It's
yeah.
just mind-blowing, honestly, too, that these sacred lands could be just hauled away. Yeah,
Mm,
blown
mhm,
away, blown up
mhm.
and hauled away.
Mm, mhm, mhm.
And
That's
that would take
outrageous.
30 years. Like like
Be 30
ecological
years just to
methods.
haul it away. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
just to
But
haul it away
but
and
give
leave a
give us
crater outside of LA.
give us the
Pretty much.
alternative to that of like timing or what you feel would be possible from your perspective of what would be possible. Using,
Yeah, I mean, so far, I think that we could treat a lot of the contaminants on parts of that site in just like a few years.
mhm,
There is radioactive contamination on that site that I haven't worked on before, and I would need training to
mhm,
be able to
mhm.
safely do that. There was a lot of
Right.
promise shown with, like, I mean, we find fungi growing in radioactive waste
Right.
and using it
That's
as a food
amazing. Right.
source.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
feel like there's
Yes.
promise there, but also,
Mhm.
to be totally honest, that is humblingly just beyond me. So, but yes, but for other types of contaminants and other portions of that site, I really feel confident that they could be treated in shorter
Mhm.
time than 30 years and for much less money and
Sure.
far less destructively in place with these
Mhm.
ecological methods.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I'm sure there's people you can be in consult with around the world who have dealt with different kinds of radiation, right? And remediation in this.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah.
ecological remediation looks like around the rest of the world as far as the embrace and who's actually, where it's
Mm.
happening at scale or not around the world. Is there anywhere in the world that's really
It seems like Europe is very
progressive with
ready.
it?
Like
Mhm.
there's funding and there's support and they have like policies that are like, let's clean up polluted soil by 2030 and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems like Europe is very
It's
ready, but I
all
haven't
momentum.
seen how much like
Exactly.
large scale implementation is happening yet.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's been a lot of really neat bioremediation efforts in India, throughout Asia, in parts. in parts of the world that are like a lot less afraid of fungi and some
Living
neat
closer to
work
nature
too
still. Yes.
coming out of like yeah Mexico and Latin America and parts of Africa. I saw some really neat stuff
Mhm.
identifying fungi that grow can help with like mine tailings and things like that. So I feel like
Wow.
yeah there's I actually we CARE was really lucky to receive a small SPUN grant. Do you know the
No,
Society for the Protection of Underground Networks?
no.
Super
Oh,
cool.
wow. It's
They're
definitely a mushroom thing. It's definitely a fungi thing.
yeah, they're mapping mycorrhizal communities around the world, and they basically give
Wow.
grants
Wow.
to local researchers to go out and sample and understand mycorrhizal networks, especially in areas of the world that just haven't had those whatever like that they're under surveyed because of
Right.
colonization base. I don't know how else to say
Mhm.
it like
Right.
but
Huh?
it was really neat. We had our intake call the other day and our project is looking at continuing to look at how mycorrhizal fungi help plants remove more metals from the soil,
Mhm.
metals like lead and arsenic. And we got to hear a little bit about people's projects. There were people from like from all over the world, from Africa, from South America, and from Italy, and
Mhm.
yeah, and people were talking. A lot of the projects had to do with bioremediation. It was
Mhm.
so cool. So I do feel like
There's an exponential thing happening.
pretty much like the places that have been most impacted by pollution seem to often have just a lot of really neat
Mhm.
bioremediation stuff happening.
Right, exactly, exactly. And sometimes it's out of like more of a desperation too, within
Yeah.
their means. They can't afford to do other ways, so they
What
can.
was, yeah, what's that saying? Like necessity breeds
Mhm.
invention or
Yes,
innovation or
yes,
something?
yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you on a broader, like more of a, I don't say exactly philosophical, but do you feel it is possible for regeneration to actually succeed long term without fundamentally realigning ourselves with the original indigenous peoples of the lands wherever all this toxicity is taking place? Because it feels that this
Mm.
change in mindset actually precedes everything else in the grand
Hmm.
scheme. Like without this, it's only happening at a surface level, but it's going to repeat,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, we need a fundamental shift. And I liked what you said at the beginning. It's not really innovation. It's like more like
right.
remembering,
Remembering. Yeah.
it's remembering, how to live with the land and in community with other humans
Mhm.
and other beings. That's
Yeah.
yeah, more
Yeah.
harmonious and regenerative and less destructive and
Hmm.
competitive. So, yeah, I do agree. I think there needs to be because systems we're in are inherently destructive and
Hmm.
greedy, and they
Yeah, I
just
think
don't stop.
without the money
So,
as a incentive, as long as profit and money agreed, all these things
mhm.
exist, it seems we still have the that possibility of destroying the world in which we live, but
Yeah.
I don't want to stay stuck on that because we know that that's really not what the world that many of us are also envisioning too. We know that it's possible and that nature is kind of opening and showing us the way of what we need to do. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about
Yeah.
the key markers or tests, the ways that you know that your remediation has succeeded in a given project. I mean, obviously it's contextual to the project, but how do you really know and can feel kind of confident
Hmm.
that you could, at what point are you no longer involved in that project? Because when can you feel like it's really okay? Is it just by what's appeared in the
Yeah.
ecosystem, the keystone species that appear? Like, well, can you give some examples?
Yeah. And I will say it really there's a lot of different ways to tell if something is working depending on resource access. So I had an email from someone involved in agriculture in Gaza, for example, a few weeks ago, and they were like, well, I don't have capability to do pollution testing, right? Which is the main way we would track and
Uh-huh.
know that we've achieved cleanup is we just test the soil or the water or whatever we're working on for
Mhm.
those contaminants, and we want
Uh-huh.
to see that they have gone down to below whatever the thresholds are that are safe for that
Mhm.
land use, right?
Right.
but there's some context. And so even before I was, having funded projects and or in a university context or things like that, I didn't have access to testing either. And so I used what are called bioassays. And
Hmm.
so those are methods that have been figured out by other people where it's like you plant lettuce seeds or beans
Oh, and if they
and
grow or
yeah, exactly. Basically, they're known to be very sensitive to toxicity. So it gives you a bit of
Mhm.
a sense. It's not going to be like, well,
Right,
there's this
conclusive.
contaminant in this level, but it's like, you know what? It was more toxic. It's less toxic now. Now
Right.
these lettuce seeds can grow. There's also earthworm tests. So yeah, so there's methods like that. But usually what we do if we have the resources, we actually test the contaminants in whatever the environmental media is we're trying to address.
Mm-hmm.
So soil testing, and then for projects where we're working with plants and fungi, because we're also still trying to figure a lot out so that we can share it with others so that they don't maybe have to do the same extent
Right.
of testing. We also test the plants and we test for fungal growth. We test
Mhm.
everything just to confirm and understand better what works. So that's, yeah, part of what we've been trying to build at our lab with CAER is, we bought our own XRF, which is this really cool device that allows us to know what the metal concentrations are
Mhm.
in soil.
Mhm.
But then for some types of and testing, we send out to another lab, and for some we partner with UCLA or universities
Mhm.
that do the testing for us. So
And
that's how we do that.
yeah, and I'm sure the labs are overloaded, right, with all this testing. Like, how do they even have enough, right? It's like you said, everything all at once at the same time, right?
Yeah, it's true.
I wondered if we could shift a little bit with all this kind of climate around glyphosate right now, and I
Mm.
wondered if you could speak about the possibilities of remediating glyphosate. I mean, I read that there's ways to do this. I wonder what your perspective is on this using nature-based remediation. Yeah, can it
Yeah.
be done at scale? Is it being done anywhere at scale? If you could speak about it, because we know we're
Um,
heading down that pipeline. We need that now.
I can't remember if I shared this last time, but I did have a friend who did some mycoremediation tests on glyphosate, and if I'm remembering right, I think that actually the control treatment ended up working better where they just added wood chips. And so that's a funny example. So, yeah, so I definitely think that probably decomposers can help break that down, whether it's fungi or bacteria.
Mhm.
But it's just a neat reminder, right, that like sometimes there's already the organisms present that can deal with the thing and they just need some support and
Yeah.
that might work better. So adding wood chips is essentially an easier to eat food for decomposers,
Hmm.
right? So that supports them so they can have build up their strength and then work on the hard to break down glyphosate.
Mm.
Yeah, but I have also seen some work looking at fungi, fungi that can break down glyphosate. I do believe it was mostly in labs though. So yeah, again, it's like sometimes there's that
Environment versus.
different, yeah, real difference there. But I'm sure it's possible.
Mhm.
It just might take some figuring out, like maybe what's the best method? Maybe adding wood chips in water to
Mhm.
support what's there, or maybe
Mhm.
adding in known species, whether in compost or in like some kind of fungal inoculum.
Mhm. Well, it's good to know that people are working on this. We know that nature has the ability to take care of pretty much everything. It's just a matter of time, right? For the most part, right?
Yeah, it's a matter of time and like creating the right conditions. And
Right.
I think that's really important because it gives me hope, right? That's an area where we can lean in and support and work together to
Yeah.
create better conditions for life to flourish and for regeneration to happen.
What I wonder what you would say, Danielle. How can listeners help advocate for nature-based remediation wherever they live? What do you recommend that they do? If they're here locally, what should they do? Because this is what many of us want. I mean, we want toxic-free air, soil. So please.
Yeah, well, anyone who's like connected to political systems, like yeah, leverage there. It sometimes does seem to help, like passing bills. And if you're in a community, like the huge contaminated site I spoke about, like a huge And actually, a lot of the sites I worked on were really influenced by just communities, like not showing up with pitchforks, but pretty much like
Mhm.
showing up to meetings and being like, "Hey, no, this is not right. We want to see
Uh-huh.
something different." It really does make
Mhm.
make a difference. Yeah, and yeah, and then just like working together to create something different, to create something better. Like all of these, however you chip in towards that, all of those things from wherever you are can really make a difference.
It all matters. Yeah. Show up, speak up, act, pray. Everything matters.
Yeah, cook for people, give them massage, whatever. Like there's just so many, yell at people, maybe not yell, educate people, whatever. There's just, yeah, there's so many. It's just come collect seeds, dig,
Mhm. Volunteer with care, volunteer with
put wood chips.
care.
Like, yeah.
Can you share some of the ways that listeners can stay in touch with you, Danielle?
Yeah. Best way, I mean, check out CAER.earth. We have our website. There's ways to get involved and connect that way. You can send me an email. I'm usually slow to respond, but I do love to collaborate and connect and share. So Danielle at care.earth is another way. We're on Instagram, we're on Blue Sky, we're on LinkedIn, we're online.
Fantastic. Danielle, thank you so much to you, Shan Juan, the team over at CARE, and all that you're doing for communities and working with Indigenous peoples here. I mean, there's so much incredible work that you're doing, and it's like your time. And I'm so glad we all want to be part of this transformation because we know it's going to be a much more beautiful world that we inhabit. And it is the world of our remembrance. Yeah.
It really is, and I do feel like it's really healing to just even be involved in land-based work. I mean, I keep hearing that from people who join in. So, yeah.
Yeah, it helps us remember our original responsibility to the earth. I don't mean it like,
Mm,
and then at the same time, on a bigger scale, we are all responsible for the thriving of Earth and all the species.
we are.
Danielle, thank you so much. And listeners, do visit care.earth. There is so much information there. Follow Danielle on her social media, LinkedIn, and all these other places, and get involved. If you actually, especially if you're local or wherever you live, if there's issues, get involved in changing the place back to the way it was intended to be. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hey, listeners, to check out the extended recording of this show or to explore our other shows, visit our website, ecojusticeradio.org, and subscribe to our podcast. This has been Eco Justice Radio and our show, Nature's Remedy, Healing Our Earth with Ecological Remediation. Thank you to our guest, Danielle Stevenson, and thank you to our listeners for joining us. Please connect with us on social media at Eco Justice Radio, SoCal350, and Wilder Utopia. If you like what you've heard, you want others to be informed, subscribe and share the episodes. You have been listening to Eco Justice Radio, a project of SoCal 350. Executive producer, myself, Jack Ite. Co-host, Carrie Kim. And engineer and original music by Blake Quake Beats. And until next time, remember, the power is yours.